Duology Theatre was made possible by producer Nolan Matten. Thank you, Nolan. It was also made possible by contributions from listeners like you. It's 420, Tom.
Yeah.
I mean, not when the podcast comes out, but...
No, but the day we're recording.
Happy late 420 to all you tokeheads.
To all you guys.
Hi, everyone.
Hello, everyone.
Welcome to Duology Theatre.
Indeed.
Yeah, I'm one of your hosts, David Bell.
I am the second of your hosts, Tom Ryman, which is appropriate for Duology Theatre.
Oh, yeah, we're a duology.
Indeed.
Of men. A duology of men. That's us.
It sounds like a Terry Gilliam film.
Yeah. Sounds like a lot of things.
It does.
It's if you've been paying attention, we're in April, which means our duology this month has been the Escape from New York and the Escape from LA movies. And we already put out the Escape from New York episode, which means that I guess this is us talking about Escape from LA.
Yeah, although if we wanted to be completely faithful to the series, we should wait 15 years.
That's true.
To put this episode out.
Yeah, when was this made? 1996?
Uh-huh.
And Escape from LA was what, late 80s?
81.
81. Opposite of late 80s.
I believe, anyway.
Yeah, it was, I think, a long time in the making. I was looking at some of the behind the scenes. There's a documentary on YouTube where, Kurt Russell pushed for this.
Sure.
And him and John Carpenter kind of decided to make it while they were flying on a plane from New York together. And they were just like, hey, that was a lot of fun. Let's do that again. So they made this. It's a budget of, I think, 50 million, which compare that to Escape from New York budget of $6 million.
That is quite a big jump.
Yeah, I don't believe it did very good.
No, it didn't do well at all.
Yeah, and a lot of people regard it as a very bad movie. So I guess
this is all accurate. This is all correct.
All right. First question to you, Tom, I guess, is how do you regard this movie?
I go back and forth on it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I think if you watch it on its own, I don't know. It's hard to say. I saw it in the theater when it came out, and was sort of disappointed with it.
Yeah.
But I wasn't a huge fan of Escape from New York at the time. In fact, I had only just seen it before watching Escape from LA.
Okay.
Like I'd seen it earlier that year. I just wanted to see it because it was a cool looking action movie with Kurt Russell in it. And then it was like, oh, I've got to watch this original movie.
Sure.
And then I had rewatched it again maybe once since then, a few years ago, I think at your house.
Yeah.
And we were just sort of laughing at how cheesy all the effects were and everything.
The effects are worse looking than the original.
Yeah, because it's all digital.
Yes.
And it's all that mid-90s digital where it was like we were just really high on the idea of like we can do anything we want now after Jurassic Park came out.
Right. And much like Jurassic Park says, you didn't bother to think if you should.
Right. So we got into these real it still stands, regardless of the quality of the actual film itself, like Escape from LA still stands as a perfect artifact of that mid-90s hubris about digital effects.
You saying, and then Jurassic Park had come out, I already knew this was made in 96. I still don't believe this was after Jurassic Park. Like, my brain doesn't register that fact. Mm-hmm. Because it looks more dated than that film in the effects.
Yeah, well, it does a lot of things with the effects that Jurassic Park doesn't do. Like, there's not... It creates whole landscapes that are completely digital. It does... There's some weird... like there's some weird compositing in it that doesn't quite look right.
Yeah, I would say much like the first movie, it's a big swing visually, and I'm sure when they made the first movie, they were like, man, I don't know if this is going to work.
The first movie has that. I mean, this movie still kind of has that appeal, but the first movie really had like the low budget, gritty, kind of grimy underdog feel to it. Mm-hmm. And the bootleg way they got everything done was way more effective because I think John Carpenter was more. I mean, it's a low budget filmmaker coming out of the late 70s into the early 80s. Like, he really is aware of the limitations, and how to creatively think around them. Whereas Escape from LA is a $50 million film with all these digital effects, and it's just like, yeah, let's just do everything with digital effects.
They didn't think they had limitations in this one, even though they absolutely did.
Yeah, they 100% did.
There's always, and it feels like it's mid-90s and mid-2000s. It's when there's these revolutions in special effects.
Early to mid-2000s, but yeah. Because it was the Matrix effect.
Right, that come from movies that ironically didn't use digital effects way.
As much of them.
Yeah, The Matrix, for example, the original bullet time is a digital effect done practically with cameras, with a camera rig. And like I think of Lord of the Rings, which used a lot of models, but people looked at that and were like, CGI is here. And then they tried to do the same thing, but all digital, and it's like, that looks terrible.
Right, and Jurassic Park is the same way, where it's way less digital than you might remember.
Right, and so it's this funny pattern there of like movies that should be teaching the opposite lesson to Hollywood in terms of visual effects, and they completely blow it.
Yeah,
and this definitely counts as that era.
I mean, Escape from New York is only marginally above the digital effects in Mortal Kombat, which came out the year before.
You mean LA?
Oh, yeah, LA. That's what I meant. Escape from LA. And the digital effects in Mortal Kombat are very bad.
Very bad. Those are the kind of effects where I remember I saw it as a kid, and I grew up into my 20s having not rewatched it. And in my head, I was like, those are amazing effects, right? And then I rewatched it. I was like, oh, no, they're not.
Oh, ew.
Yeah. Get it off. Oh, God.
Stop it. But that said, I think Escape from LA is actually a better film than people give it credit for. And I enjoyed it much more this time, having watched it pretty much coming right off of Escape from New York.
Yeah, I'm a late bloomer with this film. I think when we watched it together, that might have been the first time I saw it. I'm not sure.
Really?
Well, I don't know. It was either that or the second time, but it was very... it was in the last few years did I really sit down and watch it. I probably saw pieces of it. You know, I knew about the tsunami, but everybody told me it was a bad movie. So part of me was like, you know, I really like Escape from New York. Why see the sequel if it's a bad movie? And I can't really be mad at this movie because the impression I get... The impression I got from the film the first time I watched it and this time, and from the behind the scenes, is it's sort of these actors and this director who are older, and they're like, yeah, fuck it, let's make another.
Yeah.
And it doesn't really matter. It's just...
No, like, what? Who cares? Like, what are the stakes? What are the stakes here?
It's kind of fun to watch because it's kind of silly, and it has a lot of weird problems. At the same time, the character of Snake feels intact. He didn't strike me as a basketball guy.
No,
but other than that,
I think the basketball scene is the most egregious.
Yeah, that's
even more so than the tsunami. But
the tsunami, by the way. Oh, sorry, real quick. I got a quote from John Carpenter about the tsunami.
Perfect.
About why it happened. He said, "I wanted to see it in a movie once, just once. I don't have to see it again." And it's like, yeah, neither do we, John. Neither do we have to see it again. That's the problem. So it was clearly something that was just in his brain that he was like, fuck it. It's a lot of fuck-its. But what were you going to say?
It's a whole lot of fuck-its.
Yeah.
I was going to say the character of Snake is definitely intact, but there's some minor progression in his character in this movie. Like, I think this movie is super interesting as a companion piece to Escape from New York. Mm-hmm. Because Snake has evolved ever so slightly. Ever so slightly. He's just slightly less of a bastard in this movie.
Until the end, when he's like a big bastard.
Well, I'm
not saying I disagree with him.
Right. The government in this movie is explicitly way, way, way worse. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So it's like at the end of the movie, you like, at least me watching, I'd be like, yeah, I probably would fucking wipe out the world too. I would probably nuke all the electronics in the world too if the opposite choice was living under a fucking theocratic dictator. The
president, as you see in the beginning credits, Kurt Russell has a writing credit, and the president was one of his ideas. Can you guess who he said it was based off of?
Ronald Reagan.
No, but it's close. Pat Robertson.
Sure. Yep. Yeah. There you go. I was going to think my next guess was either going to be Robertson or Falwell.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's in the making of, looking at the making of, Kurt Russell describes John Carpenter as having a comical, like, aversion to authority.
Yeah.
He hates authority so much that it's funny. And John Carpenter himself describes his hatred of authority as like adolescent.
Yeah.
So he's very self-aware.
All checks out.
Yeah. He's very self-aware of what he's doing. Like,
yeah.
He knows it's very edgelord for this universe where they just hate everybody. And smoking is bad and meat is bad. And religion, non-Christian religion is bad, and then it's just like shut it all down. And then,
I mean it's clear that they both understand exactly who Snake is.
Yeah,
and we talked about in the previous episode how Snake might be the only true anti-hero I've ever seen in a movie,
right?
Because he truly does not behave like a hero. He doesn't do heroic things. And he does like one or two in this movie.
Look, he tries to save the president's daughter.
He saves the president's daughter, and he helps that woman out.
From Hot Shots?
Yeah, the woman from Hot Shots. He helps her. He's not initially. Like, when he's escaping from Bruce Campbell, he's just going to leave her there. And she's like, well, here, cut me loose, and then I'll help guide you. He's like, all right. But then, like, later on, after they've walked for a little bit and she tells him where to go and they're about to part ways, and she tries to convince him to, like, just spend the night with her and go in the morning, he takes off, but he hands her one of his guns.
Right.
Before that, Snake would not do that.
No, absolutely not.
He's not giving anybody any of his gear.
Bruce Campbell, by the way, who looks like the prettiest Dick Tracy villain.
Oh, Bruce Campbell's amazing.
Yeah, I don't know why. I know why he's supposed to look like that. It's just very funny.
Right. And then the very last part of this that I was pointing out is when she catches up to him later and she explains that, like, gang of people he's just come, like, he's kind of eyeing this group of people like he doesn't know what sort of threat level they are. Mm-hmm. Are they harmless or are they threat level midnight? But then she shows up and explains, no, they're just new here. They're praying because they're scared. I was like that. And then she tells him that she got sent there because she was Muslim in South Dakota. Suddenly they decided that was illegal.
Right. And then she's like, I mean, it's a big part of this. It's like, it's the Demolition Man thing, which is that, well, they're the prisoners out there. Yes. We're in this wasteland, but we have freedom. Right. Which is the theme of Escape from New York, because, and again, he undercuts it by having her saying, like, yeah, it's not so bad here, and then immediately gets shot.
And then she immediately gets shot. I think that's really interesting for a couple of reasons. I mean, one, because it's the obvious dichotomy. It's like, it's sort of the price of freedom. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's like, well, would you rather, be completely secure and isolated 364 days of the year in case on that 365th day something happens, or would you rather be free?
Right.
and just take your chances with, yeah, you might get shot, but I mean, so
of
there's
course,
that.
Of course, the answer is that there is options in between. You can stay at home, for a few months until the threat settles down.
Exactly.
It's but that of course isn't what this movie's about.
No, it's not what this movie's about.
Again, it's adolescent. It's purposefully adolescent in nature, so it's all or nothing.
Right, and the president's regime is so over the top villainous. But the other interesting part of that scene is how Snake reacts to her death. Like, he's upset.
Yes, which is a growth.
That is a first for Snake.
Yeah. Here's an interesting fact about this movie, and I think this is why I think this is one of the reasons people didn't like this movie. Mm-hmm. John Carpenter describes this movie as a remake. He said, like, we were going to make a sequel, but I just sort of ended up making a remake because I love the original so much.
Yep.
And I think that's what bugs people, is because her getting killed is a beat from the original.
Yes.
As is the ending with the tape, and it plays Steve Buscemi's fucking
Map to the Stars. Yeah.
Map to the Stars.
Well, the whole thing is even like the rate with which he loses his equipment.
Yeah.
He's got two extra guns in this, but...
And this is something I hadn't thought about, but since they repeat it in this, it occurred to me. It was funny. I started writing the note because Eddie kills... why am I forgetting the villain's name? It's a great name. What's the villain's name? Or not the villain, but the freedom fighter.
Shit. I mean, he is villainous.
Cuervo Jones.
Cuervo Jones.
Jesus Christ. Such a good name. Steve Buscemi kills him. Uh-huh. And I was like, oh, that's weird. He didn't kill, Pliskin didn't kill the bad guy. And I was like, oh, wait. He didn't in the other one, too.
Yeah, the president kills the Duke of New York.
It's a weird feature for our hero. What's interesting about it...
Go ahead.
What's interesting to me about it is that movies will do that when they want to keep their main character morally clean, but Snake isn't that. Like they'll do that. They'll do it when like a character's like, I'm not going to kill you. And then something happens that still results in the death of the villain because you got to kill the villain. But Snake kills plenty of people in this. Right.
I think I believe I know the reason for that.
I have a theory as well.
Okay. What's your theory?
Well, it's not so much a theory as much as I understand the choice, which is that he gives the killing to the character that needs it the most.
Right.
Yeah. Snake, it's very Mad Max, where Snake it's not ever his story, really. It's someone else's.
And he's not emotionally invested in it. Like, he could care less. Like, he's just there to grab the box and get out, or else he's going to die. Like, he's completely selfishly motivated. So all he cares about is getting that fucking box and getting off of L.A., so he doesn't take anything personally.
Right, and that's his arc, which, again, since this is essentially a remake, is the arc in both, which is that he starts the film not giving too much of a shit about people, and then by the end, at least, like, exacts revenge for them, or does something that causes waves that he doesn't need. He's already got a charge against him for gunfighting for profit in this one.
In New Vegas and Thailand.
Yeah, I can't even begin to know what the fuck that is.
Yeah. What the fuck was that? I mean, it's the same thing in New York, where he makes the same case to the president. He's like, a lot of people died to get you out of there. So it's like there's a scene where after, like, Steve Buscemi shoots him to try and take the box from him. And when he falls out into the I guess the LA River with Peter Fonda, and Peter Fonda's sitting there waiting for this. Yeah, he is. He plays an old surfer. He's perfectly cast.
Yes, that's for sure. I love that they just have like a hey man like relationship, because I mean, why wouldn't they? It's just very funny that it's like everybody else, it's like sort of a push and pull and like a struggle between them, and there's power grabs. Peter Fonda's just like, hey, I'm just here to surf, and he's like, cool, man.
Well, they're kind of like real surfers too. When he shows up, they're like pretty territorial. They're like, "Get off our beach." He's like, "I'm just passing through," and they're like, "All right." They just let him go.
Yeah.
I mean, it's an extreme version of real life surfers, but
right.
Anyway, the point is when he washes up in the ravine next to Peter Fonda's like, "Oh man, who shot you?" And Snake says, "Doesn't matter."
Right.
So
yeah,
he's living the moment, really, man. Right, like he doesn't, and then he like is perfectly fine with Steve Buscemi going with them in the helicopter and stuff. Like he doesn't hold shit against people, really.
Right. It's sort of it's one of those tropes that we actually see with Hershey, the character of Hershey, which when Snake sees her, he's like, "You got a lot of nerve," like one of those moments. Where like clearly they have some beef between them from Cleveland. She
bailed on him in Cleveland. Yeah, okay, so he holds specific things against people.
No. But what I mean is that it's a trope that always happens in movies where they're like, "Oh, you son of a bitch," and then they help each other because they're not going to kill each other, but there's always like tension. And what we're seeing with Steve Buscemi is kind of like the prequel to those moments in action movies, where like the next time he would see Steve Buscemi, he'd have the same relationship, probably.
Yeah, probably.
Like, "You shot me, you bastard," and you'd be like, "Hey, cool it, Snake." So it's just, these things happen. We live in a world, or they live in a world where getting shot by someone isn't as severe as it is in our world. That's the impression I get.
It's not as severe as organizing a job with somebody and then them bailing on you, which is what happened between him and Hershey.
Right.
And Hershey is the same. It's the same beat as Brain in the original.
Yeah,
it's another person he knew from the outside that sort of screwed him over.
Yeah. But that's another. Yeah. It's. Yeah, if someone shoots you and they're like, "Hey, man, you had water. I needed water. We're in a wasteland." It's like, okay, that checks out. It's just people are doing what they can to survive. Steve Buscemi I think Snake kind of understood, like, this man has no allegiance, but why would he? He sells maps to the stars, which a business I do not understand how that's working out for him.
Yeah, why is he still leaning into that after the apocalypse?
Yeah.
What the heck was I going to say? I don't know. I don't know. I had another point I thought, but maybe I didn't. I don't know. It's interesting just to watch this as a companion and treat it like a companion piece. I mean, it's a remake. It's all the same beats.
Yeah, I know why it didn't work. I do like what you're saying about his character. They recognize New York in this. As well as Cleveland. I looked up why Cleveland gets mentioned so much, by the way.
I think they were planning on making one about that, weren't they?
No. John Carpenter apparently has said that if he ever made a third one, it would be called Escape from Earth. And it's like, well, fucking, what are you waiting for?
Yeah.
Let's do this. No, apparently the character of Snake Plissken was named after a guy that John Carpenter heard about that was from Cleveland. Which is a weird-ass reference. But that is why they talk about Cleveland so much.
Oh, that's perfect.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess it's perfect. It's random as shit.
Yeah. I mean, that's why.
Yeah. I think here's the other thing. We talked about the visual effects. And I guess this is a product. It's a symptom of the visual effects. But if the visual effects were perfect, this still would be a problem. This film. There's certain ideas in it. Like the submarine, I think, was dumb.
Oh, I thought it was hilarious. I loved the submarine because it's the same.
Hilarious.
I love that Snake absolutely cannot hang on to his vehicles.
No, he cannot.
Like, he loses them immediately.
Yeah, and he keeps getting drugged with things. He has a lot of specific problems that he repeats. It's more that, like, you compare the two scenes. In Escape from New York, they do the glider, and it's like kind of a meditative scene. Like, the music is pretty chill, and it's like at night, and he's going in. And this one, a shark literally makes a cartoon chomping sound as he swoops by Universal Studios.
It's the Jaws ride shark.
Is it? Because I didn't want to commit to that because that's even worse.
It's the Jaws ride shark.
I did learn one of the buildings that he crashes through is a specific building in Universal where John Carpenter had a lot of meetings he hated. There's a lot of little things like that. A lot of little gripes.
Yeah, and then the dig at Disney at the end.
Yeah, well, apparently they tried to get the rights.
I'm sure they did.
And Disney was like, of course not. You know where they shot instead? Did you recognize that? It took me a second. It's the town square of Hill Valley.
Oh, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Universal backlot.
Yep. With just a bunch of fake rides around it, I assume.
Yeah. They dressed it up to look like Main Street USA from Magic Kingdom.
Yeah.
And then when it's the wide shot for Buscemi and Kurt Russell and Pam Grier flying in, you can see the Cinderella's castle. The helicopter bounces off of Big Thunder Mountain.
Yes. And again,
they're trying to escape.
This is again kind of I would say the reason this movie didn't work. Again, I also really enjoyed it because it's silly. But as a movie I could take seriously, or as serious as Escape from New York, when they're like hang gliding in shooting guns, I was just like, that's stupid. Like
it is pretty dumb.
It's real dumb. All the action is really dumb. It's surfing on a tsunami, hang gliding, the submarine, and like it's all kind of very undignified to watch, as opposed to like a car chase to a bridge that they have to climb up. You know, like it's because of its limited budget, Escape from New York, the action was also a lot more about tension and a smaller scale.
Yes.
And it's that situation where it's like you have enough money to do a lot of big scale action, but that was never really what the first movie was. Which of course, it's not. Who am I to say that? He made it. You know.
Yeah.
So that's sort of, again, why I can't stay mad at this film. Because it's like, well, this is what you wanted to do. Kurt Russell was 45 when he made this.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, he got into shape for it. I think they wanted the basketball scene just because Kurt Russell was liked sports. And it's like, yeah, man, fuck it.
Yeah.
Let's have a scene where you have to make a bunch of basketball shots.
Let's have a scene where Snake has to shoot some hoops or else he gets shot to death.
Yeah. Shot to death by a group of people who do not understand the concept of a firing squad.
Nope.
You can't. You don't stand in a circle, fellas.
No, don't do that.
It's going to end badly. How long have you been doing that? How many people are you burning through because of your
Honestly,
circle?
if that's how they do it every night, those guys are probably all brand new to this.
Yeah, that's fair.
It's a high turnover rate.
That's part of the fun. Mm-hmm. All the LA people getting together. As always, LA. Actually, I would say more than Escape from New York. LA in this looked fun. Like, yeah, there's a lot of death, and that sucks. But it was like a big old punk party where they're just like riding motorcycles and having. They had a parade.
Hell yeah, they did.
Yeah, and they have Disney right there. I wonder if the rides still work.
Oh, I'm sure they don't.
Yeah.
But you know what? I'd give it a shot.
I would absolutely. I would push I would push that fucking cart up Thunder Mountain and climb in and see what happens.
Oh, hell yeah.
Did you notice that Steve Buscemi is dressed like the Joker in this?
Yeah. I mean, he's dressed like a guy that makes balloon animals.
Yeah, he's awesome. It's so weird to see. Has he been in another John Carpenter film?
I don't think so, no.
That's one of the things I really like about this film is seeing like Pam Grier and Steve Buscemi and fucking Bruce Campbell in a John Carpenter film.
Yeah. It was a perfect moment in time when all of those things were possible.
Yeah. It's weird to think about. I think when we watched Ghosts of Mars together, we talked about that, which is like, what a weird thing to see Jason Statham in a John Carpenter film. That
Jason
feels like
Statham with Pam Grier in a John Carpenter film.
It's too, but Statham specifically, he represents like a different era. You know what I mean? Like it's like watching Tom Cruise in Eyes Wide Shut.
Yes.
It's like Tom Cruise in a Kubrick film. What an alien idea.
Yeah.
And I think it's one of the things that makes me wish Carpenter would make at least one other movie that isn't The Ward. Is I'd love to see modern actors doing John Carpenter.
Yeah, that would be sweet, but I think he's done.
Yeah, and he has every right to be.
Yeah.
This ended with a White Zombie song. That blew my mind in some weird way.
Oh, what about the scene where he starts walking down Hollywood Boulevard and Tool starts playing?
Yes. And again, it was my brain not admitting that I'm watching the 90s.
Yep.
There's something strictly 80s about John Carpenter, even though a lot of his films were made after that. Mm-hmm. And so to see anything modern, it just feels wrong. The soundtrack was, man, that really fucked me up.
Yeah. No, I mean, I don't know. I really enjoyed this movie on this watch.
Mm-hmm. No, I'm not. Yeah, it's just sillier.
I mean, it is.
It's not the same thing.
No, it is sillier, but
it's less gritty.
It is less. They try to recreate that with the digital effects, and it works sometimes.
Yeah,
with the Disneyland stuff, that's pretty great.
Yeah, I don't just mean visually. I also feel like
the tone. You're right.
It's like when Kurt Russell is a bunch of motorcycle guys are going to kill him, and he's like, "Wait, we'll do this Bangkok rules," and they all comply, and it was like, "What are you, fucking Bugs Bunny?"
Yeah.
Why are these villains playing along with your game? And the suit he wears is very funny. The weird pleather. It definitely still has the amount of death in there, mm-hmm. and action and that level of grittiness, but it's just everything's a little like a cartoon version.
A little bit.
Yeah.
A little bit. Yeah. I get that.
I mean, I can't stay mad at it. This is more me saying why I understand why people didn't like this movie, why this movie didn't work.
I think they shouldn't Escape from New York and Escape from LA, they shouldn't have tried to make it a summer blockbuster, which is what they did.
Yeah, that's odd.
Yeah, maybe half the budget.
It's also half the budget. It's a very cynical film. It's not for nobody wants to go to summer
nobody's
blockbuster.
Gonna feel this is not a movie for mainstream audiences because it is a very specific viewpoint. Yeah,
the hero ends the world
essentially.
It was criticized a lot for demonizing gang violence, which I think had to do with the climate at the time. This was a response to one of the things that John Carpenter said is the reason they said it in L.A. is he was talking about how New York, when they made Escape from New York, New York was seen as that's the city you don't go to. Mm-hmm. And then LA had the riots and the earthquake, the Northridge earthquake.
Yeah.
And he was like, it seemed like it was getting kind of dangerous here. So I thought, well, let's do it.
It's the obvious next choice. Yeah.
Yeah. And it also represents this world where I guess you would call them probably a conservative rulership. It's a dictatorship. It's hard to tell because they also ban red meat and cigarettes and
right. But the crux of it is that it's a theocratic dictatorship.
Yes. So I guess I wouldn't. I guess I shouldn't assign it to any political party, and that's the point. But one of the things that felt very conservative leaning in the world is that they're going after the big cities. It's the cities that usually vote the other way, mm-hmm. Are being basically walled off and discounted, and the people inside, and that feels very relevant.
Yes,
it's the idea. The president, they say they moved to D.C. to Lynchburg, yeah, mm-hmm. And so the idea is this government that is now ruling based off middle America and the
fear.
People who in fear and the people who aren't the majority, mm-hmm. and just making it a hardcore Christian nation.
Right. I think this movie is definitely is more leaning towards one direction than Escape from New York was. Escape from New York, it's completely ambiguous what the politics of the president is.
Right.
And in fact, you might argue that he's more liberal because he's pushing a clean energy agenda.
You're right. Yeah.
Particularly in the 80s, fucking Reagan wasn't interested in any of that shit. But this movie, it's
did he oversee the Clean Air Act? There's a few GOP that Nixon formed the EPA. I know that.
I thought clean air was Nixon. I could be wrong.
I don't know. Conservatives used to care about that stuff more.
Yeah, that is true. Yeah, that is true. But what
I get what you're saying. Yeah.
What I'm saying is that they specifically tell us that the laws are designed to legislate morality. So like there's like immoral people are sent to LA, in addition to like your more people who break laws.
What do they? I wrote it down, the list of people: prostitutes, atheists, runaways. And I was like, okay, I get the world with the prostitutes and atheists. I don't agree with it, but like runaways.
Yeah, like not honoring your father and mother. That's very biblical.
Oh, that's true. You're right.
Yeah, and they send the lady from Hot Shots there because she's a Muslim. Like it's so it's this is more.
But then they say cigarettes have been banned, red meat has been banned, which is very leftist leading. Which is why I was thinking like it's not supposed to be. It definitely is more.
It's more because it's more conservative based because it stems from the rule by what the Bible says and the extreme rule. Like you can vote to be electrocuted to death rather than go to this island prison, which means that they by extension they're probably just literally sentencing people to death for being Muslims.
Yeah.
So it's like.
Are they choosing to be killed rather than go into LA?
Yeah.
Well, that seems short-sighted. Mm-hmm. I mean, whatever. People have the right to choose these things to be executed or go into the wasteland. But like, they had some cool shit in the wasteland. I don't know.
Yeah, they did. So yeah, it's still. I mean, Carpenter and Kurt Russell are definitely. Still just extremely libertarian, and that comes off in this movie.
Yeah, but they seem self-aware of how silly,
right? They took the steps in this one to make the government more explicitly, objectively evil.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So you're kind of like when Snake nukes it all at the end. You're kind of like, well, yeah, fuck those guys.
Yeah, when he sends us back to the Dark Age, that's also. It made me think like. The government's not just evil. They have a bad referral process, I guess. Why would you use Snake again? He didn't do the thing last time. He erased the energy.
He did the thing.
Yeah, then he
was told to bring the president back.
That's true. But he did. He's still like, I don't know. It's weird that they'd be like, hey, that guy that like erased that tape that would have saved the world, let's get him again. He worked out.
Yeah, I don't know.
I guess he's just the best, or maybe they made that
Stacy
suit
Keach
for
says.
him.
He says he's the best, or whatever.
And they made that suit for him that perfectly fit. That has. This is a weird gripe, but his guns were attached by the same clips that you put on bicycle helmets, which I thought was very funny. It felt like a shoddy ass suit. And then they give him the gun with the blanks. Which I found funny too.
I really liked that scene though, where he's like, so who's going to give me the injection? It's neither one of you. And he immediately tries to kill them.
Yes. And then they're like, well, I just thought, they're like, we had blanks in that. And if I were him, I'd be like, okay, let me just switch this out real quick.
I would just reload. I would just switch magazines and kill them.
It's a shoddy plan, yeah. When the woman scratched him in the hallway, did you think he was going to get doppelganged? I had an instinct because I just watched The Outsider.
Okay,
and I was like,
The Outsider.
No.
No, I mean, I remembered what it was. So
yeah. He didn't seem to care. She like scratched him in the hall, and he was like, "That was fucking weird."
Yeah, he's like, "What the fuck was that about?"
Yeah, yeah. I mean, despite the silliness, again, I enjoy it.
I definitely enjoy these movies together. Like I don't think Escape from New York. I mean, Escape from LA on its own, it doesn't. Like,
well, it does.
I probably wouldn't go back to it ever, but like watching it paired with Escape from New York, it's like, oh, this is delightful.
It is a good pairing. It's a little too repetitive for me. I think they escalated it the wrong way in that they just made the action bigger. It was John Carpenter says this is like he calls it something like a political film disguised as an action movie. And it's like, yeah, the original, I never thought of the original like an action movie. It's a dystopian sci-fi.
There's not that much action in it, too. So
no, so like pushing action, I just think isn't. And also, John Carpenter, does he do a lot of action? Like thinking about his movies, he's not an action director.
Not really. I mean, action happens.
Yeah, but he doesn't make action films.
Right, like you wouldn't call like They Live. There's action in it. And
there's action in
the
that,
most
Tom.
hilarious fight scene.
Yeah.
And then also Roddy Piper getting knocked through a window straight down the Hollywood Hills.
Oh, so good. Just tumbling down.
Just tumbling down like fucking that scene in Hot Rod. But yeah, no, I don't know if I would, like, that's still not like the primary. I guess maybe it is. I don't know. That's an interesting question. Like I was going to say that's still not like the primary genre of They Live, but then I thought, well, maybe actually it is.
Sci-fi. It's sci-fi horror kind of comedy.
It's definitely satirical.
Yeah, this is the thing that makes John Carpenter so good is that I would say a lot of his films. I haven't watched Big Trouble in a while, but that also felt like one where I'm like, I'm not sure what the genre is. The genre is it's a John Carpenter film.
Yes.
Like he's a genre that I think directors now are aping, making movies like
It Follows.
It Follows. That's aping like the Halloween, which Halloween is one of his most tonally different films.
Yes, yeah.
It's funny how that is.
And The Fog.
And The Fog. He does the horror version. I would argue The Ward was probably trying to be, it was that direction of John Carpenter. Mm-hmm. I haven't seen that movie in a while, but I do recall it not quite working out.
I've heard it wasn't good, so I've never seen it.
I need to watch it again.
Yeah, I probably should.
Yeah. But yeah, he has that style, and then he has like the They Live Escape from LA style where you're like, Jesus, I don't know what the fuck this is. Right. I was thinking of like what's that one? Brawl in Cell Block 99 or whatever.
Yeah.
With Vince. And like there's that director who kind of does the Carpenter stuff. There's a few that I feel like are directly inspired. Doomsday. We watched Doomsday recently.
That's Neil Miller, right?
That was straight out of Escape from New York. That was They weren't even trying to hide it.
No.
So that's
Neil Marshall. I'm sorry, Neil Marshall.
So I guess it's weird to see him trying to do an action film because I feel like John Carpenter can't help but to be John Carpenter.
Right, yeah, like he's got to every so often he's got to just come in and be like, woohoo!
Yeah.
Just
and it almost doesn't work
but
for
like
action.
In the Mouth of Madness. That's a later period John Carpenter one that's not a fun movie.
No, I would it's well, again, Halloween isn't a fun movie either. I think he can do like serious horror.
Yeah,
but then he can also do
it's
like
more in the tone of his earlier stuff.
Oh yeah, I would agree. He kind of goes back and forth. It feels like.
Mm-hmm.
But this movie, I think, fits the least into his style because he's making a for him, a big budget, I guess, action film.
Mm-hmm.
And I would almost cut all the action out of this. I think the action was the part I enjoyed the least. Because I mean,
some
know.
of it was fun.
Yeah. Again, I can't stay mad at this. I can't stay mad at this movie.
No, why would you want to?
I don't dislike this movie.
Why would you try to stay angry at it? What's wrong with you?
Is this okay? Would you say this is your least favorite John Carpenter film?
Of the ones that I've seen?
I was about to say I haven't seen Memoirs of an Invisible Man, so of the ones you've seen.
I don't know. Of the ones that I've seen,
And I guess I should remind you, you have seen Ghosts of Mars.
I have seen Ghosts of Mars. Okay, Ghosts of Mars is worse than this movie.
Okay. Yeah.
Thanks for the reminder. I was debating between this and Body Bags there for a second.
Oh, yeah, Body Bags. I think I love Body Bags.
Oh, Body Bags is amazing, but like, it's definitely some of his lesser work.
And when we're saying lesser work, though, I also think that John Carpenter's worst film is better than most films. He's fantastic. Yeah.
Probably, yeah.
So it's like kind of a loaded question.
Don't know if I could say that about Ghosts of Mars. I think Ghosts of Mars is a legitimately bad film. but maybe it's not.
Jason Statham,
It's
and they're
got a
doing
lot of
future
stuff going.
drugs.
It's got a lot of stuff going for it.
It's kind of a fun watch, I would say.
Yeah.
This isn't. It's. I think by default, the fact that it's Snake Plissken makes it very good, because Kurt Russell's bringing it.
Oh yeah.
He's bringing it as an actor.
A-game.
He's bringing it to the court.
Yep. Yeah, he is.
Yeah. So yeah, it's pretty damn entertaining. I don't think of it. It's funny you talking about this as a companion piece, because I was going into this thinking, because we talked about this when we did the raid. We had the question of like, do these movies fit together? You know, like, do you watch them both? Do you watch just one?
Yeah.
And I was suspecting that I was going to say that this movie isn't necessary because it's kind of a remake. And if you think of it a remake, it's just like, well, it's a not as good remake.
Yeah.
But I think you sold me that you should watch these both together.
Yeah. You can watch Escape from New York on its own, but you can't do LA by itself. But if you watch them both together, I think it's a good, rich experience. Yeah.
I think so.
Yeah.
I feel happy about this. I think we landed at a good place here.
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely better than where Snake landed his submarine.
Yes. Oh, you know what really bothered me? There was an earthquake scene.
There's a lot of earthquakes.
Yeah. I think when they're in the stadium, and it's not a big note, but the earthquake starts and one of them goes, "It's the big one." And I was like, motherfucker, what? I mean, what? Look at your city. Didn't the big one happen? Yeah.
Yeah.
It was just such a funny line in a wasteland.
Yeah.
It was like, oh no, funny. Here it comes. And it's like, well.
In a wasteland created by a huge earthquake.
Yeah, you are, sir. Sir, you are watching a man play basketball for his life.
Yeah.
I think you're. I don't know if you need much to worry about here. Yeah. I guess that's my final thought on this movie.
That's a solid one. That's a good final thought.
Yeah. I want to thank everybody.
I had one more thought. I did like how they mirrored the everybody meeting Snake in New York and being like, I thought you were dead. In this one, it's I thought you'd be taller.
Yeah. Why do you think that? Why did they do that?
I think it was just like a nod to that ongoing joke in the first movie. It's like, well, we got to have the same sort of joke, but what else could it be? It's like, well, what else would anybody? What's the other cliche thing that people say? It's like, well, I thought you'd be taller.
Right. That in Cleveland.
Yeah, that in Cleveland. Yep. Fucking
Cleveland. Is that where Snake is from?
I don't know. That's just where they almost caught him.
Right. The fuck is he doing? I guess if you wipe out New York and L.A., what else do you got to do? You got to fucking Cleveland. Have a good time. See the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. That's
you could
there,
do
right?
that. No. Yeah. Wait, is it?
Guys.
I don't
Is
care.
it? Guys, listening. Yell out.
Yeah, shout into the speaker. Lean right into the speaker of your listening device and scream the answer to us, please.
Mm-hmm. Okay. I want to thank our Patreon producer for this. Nolan Matten.
Thank you, Nolan.
Yeah, he's in the intro, so we didn't have to mention him up top.
Oh,
but just another thank you at the end for doing Duology Theatre. I do not know what we're going to cover next month, and therefore we will not tell you. But I bet it'll be
a surprise.
Yeah, we have. So we did the raid, and we did Escape from New York, L.A. Mm-hmm. Nolan gave us a lot of options. Some of them are very bad. What do you think, Tom? You want to do a bad one next month?
I don't know. Maybe.
Okay, we'll figure this out when when our voices aren't being recorded.
Yeah, that's probably a better idea.
Hey, folks, we got a Patreon. Patreon.com/gamefullyunemployed. It's where this podcast got made through one of our Patreon producers. We also have exclusive podcasts there, like Tom and Jeff Watch Batman, and Fox Mulder is a Maniac. Woo. So you guys, you could check it out.
Yeah, you could do that. That's a thing you could do.
It's one of many things that you can do. Mm-hmm. It's an option.
It is accurate.
In the many paths we take through the multiverse, there's a path where you do that. Mm-hmm. And who knows, become president.
Yeah.
And then make a bunch of oppressive laws and wall off major cities and try to kill your daughter.
Yeah, throw her right in the electric chair.
Duology Theatre is brought to you by Gamefully Unemployed. Check out our cool shit at patreon.com/gamefullyunemployed.